Thanks for listening. Every time you listen, you are a blessing and encouragement to us as we leave the legacy of faith by journaling through the Bible. This is episode 402, season 1 of the Family Bible Journey Old Testament podcast. Today we're looking at Proverbs chapter 5. The title of today's podcast is Your Own Well, ? And our key verses for today, the entirety of Proverbs chapter 5, where we read, My son, be attentive to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, that you may keep discretion, and your lips may guard knowledge. For the lips of a forbidden woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end she is as bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps follow the path to Sheol. She does not ponder the path of life. Her ways wander, and she does not know it. And now, O sons, listen to me, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others and your years to the merciless. Lest strangers take their fill of your strength, and your labors go to the house of a foreigner. And at the end of your life you groan, when your flesh and body are consumed, and you say, How I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers, or incline my ear to my instructors. I am at the brink of utter ruin in the assembled congregation. Drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets? Let them be for yourself alone, and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed, and rejoice in the wife of your youth, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breasts fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. Why should you be intoxicated, my son, with a forbidden woman, and embrace the bosom of an adulteress? For a man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. The iniquities of the wicked ensnare him, and he is held fast in the cords of his sin. He dies for lack of discipline, and because of his great folly he is led astray. This is the word of the Lord. Here in chapter 5, we are hearing much again about adultery. It is for sure a preferred topic of Solomon at the beginning of this book of Proverbs, as we've already spent much time discussing this temptation. And as we said in our last episode, Solomon is somebody who knew all too well the temptation to adultery. And he undoubtedly, towards the end of his life, as we will read in the book Ecclesiastes, he grew weary of the world's charms, because as he aged and he grew in his maturity, and he learned by trial and error and making many mistakes that there was no lasting fulfillment in these sorts of relationships, he is trying to spare his son much of the pain that he certainly suffered from because of his own folly. Because even he, as the wisest man who's ever lived, was legendary in adultery. And he is seeking to prevent his son from finding the same sorts of disappointments and the same hardships that Solomon himself bore much of his life. Now, I have a couple of notes on this chapter, and then we're going to talk about this metaphor towards the end of the chapter, which probably doesn't make sense to most of our listeners. In verses 3 and 4, my note there says, Those who seek to deceive you will tell you what they think you want to hear. Friends tell you the truth. And Solomon here talks about the words of the adulteress being dripping with honey, being smoother than oil. And you have to be careful if you think that someone is always telling you what you want to hear or what they may think you want to hear, because oftentimes these people will try to lower your guard to flatter you into trusting them, but this not for your own well-being, but rather for theirs. And we live in a sly and sinister world where many people speak the native tongue of the devil and are deceitful and will use every possible way, disguising themselves even as a friend, even as a handsome young man who is interested in you, or a beautiful young woman who wants you. These are forms that the devil often takes in an attempt to deceive even the faithful. And we need to watch out for these things. And then beginning in verse 15, where it talks about drinking water from your own cistern. Here we see a metaphor for being a faithful spouse. And living in the Near East, it is largely a desert land. And we can't appreciate, as people living in 21st century, predominantly North America, or wherever you are around the globe, that there is clean water available for almost everybody, anywhere that we would go. Because in this time in history, and in this part of the world, clean water, that we would consider clean at least, was unheard of. And water was a scarce commodity that had to be preserved. It had to be protected. And a cistern was simply a dry well. It was a place where collected rainwater would pool. And so the cistern here is a metaphor for the love that exists between a husband and a wife. And as long as they are caring for each other and putting each other first, that well will be filled with clean and pure water that gives life to those who drink it, in particular, the man and the woman who are wed in holy matrimony. And to scatter one's water on the street, well, that would be a horribly useless and terrible waste of life's most valuable commodity. And this is a poetic way that Solomon is trying to convey to his son, to us, his readers, the importance of the love shared within a marriage. That is something that there is no substitute for. So long as married couples are finding their joy and delight and satisfaction in each other, there is ample love and blessing for them in that relationship. But if they go and seek to share this sort of intimacy with others, either before or outside of marriage, then that is bound to cause us decrease. It is bound to come with an emotional weight, our sin. It has consequences, and it is going to hurt us. It is going to deprive us of much of the peace and the happiness and the joy that human beings are meant to know in a true love and trust-based relationship, first and foremost with God, but secondly, with a human spouse, and then after that, children, an extended family, and members of the community, as God's love and his righteous and holy ways find a place in our life. And thus, we are encouraged here in righteousness and in faithfulness, in particularly when it comes to this area of life. And we want to be very mindful of the consequences that come from sin. Recognize that Satan, he will use our basest and most basic human desires, primal animal desires, to lead us astray, and we do not want to play the fool to him. And so we leave this chapter recognizing the precious commodity that love, especially as it is enjoyed between a man and a woman, truly is the tremendous blessing that it is. The wonderful blessings that come for us when we live into that love, and also the dire consequences if we would try to find a shortcut to that love by engaging in adulterous relationships and behaviors. But unfortunately, adultery isn't the only seductive sin, as we are going to hear in our next chapter, where adultery and another sin, very common to our day and age, intertwine and connect and lead many, even of the faithful, away from the Lord's will from them, and cause tremendous hurt without us even realizing it until it is too late. Thanks for listening to the Family Bible Journey podcast. If you'd like to help us get the good word out, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Also, if you'd like to make a financial contribution. All donations are tax deductible, and I receive zero compensation from this podcast, so that everything you give goes directly to the work that God has given us to do in sharing this journey of journaling through the Bible. Our blessing for today. May faithfulness be your guard and keep you true to your God and those you love. Amen.